As part of writing and graphing inequalities, let's review how to create a number line of our own. We're going to create a couple different examples. We'll start with just basic integers. And we don't always have to have 0 in the middle. And we'll get more into that when we start actually graphing inequalities that we have. So if I wanted to put 0 somewhere in the middle, we can say that there's a 0 here. And we count 1, 2, 3, and so on. And then negative direction, -1, -2, -3, and so on. Or we could also count by 2. So if I put 0 in the middle, I can count by 2. So it'd be 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on. And then same with the negatives, 2 counting by 2s, -2, -4, -6, -8. Whatever numbers you're going to count by, just make sure you count by the same numbers going to the right and to the left. And when we make our own number lines for the problems we're going to be graphing, you don't have to put all the numbers in. What you need to do at the very least is to put your number. So if our number, for example, was 4, I could start with a 4 in the middle and then put a 2 and a 6 on either side. So let's redo this number line and let's do an example like that. So let's say we're just trying to graph 4. So I start with 4 in the middle and decide what I want to count by. If I want to count by 1, this would be 5 and this would be 3. Or, looking at the one below, let's say I needed the number -2. If I put -2 in the middle, then I can go 1, count by 1s. 1 to the right would be -1, and 1 to the left would be -3. Be really careful. This is a common error when we are writing number lines. We tend to get our negatives mixed up. Remember, the bigger number the negative is, the smaller it gets. So then this would continue if we needed to, -4, -5, and so on. But we only need the 3 numbers. But just be really careful when you're making number lines with negatives. Remember to count the correct direction. We might also need to make a number line with fractions. Let's say we're starting with 3/4, for example. So I could start with 3/4. And then the easiest way to do this is to count by the denominator, so by 4. So 3/4, 4/4, which is really just 1, and then 2/4 on the other side, or 1/2. Or if we want to look at another fraction, let's say we had the fraction 2/5. So 1 to the right could be 3/5, and 1 to the left would be 1/5. Or let's change this one above it with the negatives. Let's do those negatives with the fractions. So if this is -2/5, then this is going to be -1/5 to the right and -3/5 to the left. So when we're doing negatives, notice that it's backwards from what we did with the positives. So again, that is the most common mistake. Make sure when you're counting with negatives, we're counting in the correct direction. And we can do one more. We can do an example with some decimals. Let's get rid of this first one here. So if we needed 0.4, then 1 to the right, we can count by tenths. That'd be 0.5. To the left, 0.3. Will be one example of how we can count by fractions. So again, common error to watch out for is when you're doing the negatives, be careful that you're counting the correct direction. And the second thing is make sure you're counting by the same value. So again, here's an example of what we do not want to do. If we start here and we say this is 1 and I put this as 3, so I counted 2 to the right, I could not put 0 here because this is adding 2 to get to 3, but this is only adding 1, so we're not counting by the same value. 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1, that would have been a 2. So whatever you're counting by, you have to count by the same value every time. That's the second most common mistake.